addiction took our mother slowly, rocked her through it and sung her to sleep, sunk deep into the mattress on her bed. When her back teeth fell out, she left them on the side of the bathtub. I was 7, and I kept them in a matchbox, the missing pieces of her kept safe so she wouldn't be lost forever, so maybe one day we could put her back together. Our house fell down around us and we tried our best to raise ourselves. The ceilings had water damage and the bottom stairs had dry rot, and in the winters, the radiators would bleed rust. But it was still our house, and Annie made it a home. My sister Annie mothered me, with lopsided band-aids on bruised knees and lukewarm microwave meals. She told me ghost stories and didn't mind when I crawled into her bed later on, too scared to sleep. Alone, she taught me to dance, barefoot on the living room carpet, music channel on full volume on the TV, shaking our hips before they were fully grown. She always let me shower first so the water was hot, never complaining when she had to make do with cold. She brushed my hair every day before school, even when I screamed and hit her when she caught the tangles. Annie was dark-haired like her father, whoever he had been, but I was blonde. Annie was desperate to be blonde too, like Marilyn Monroe, like Mom. I think she thought it would make them closer, remind Mom less of her dad. I'd give anything for her to have her hands in my hair one more time, even if it hurt. She moved to New York when I turned 18 and never came back. I still dream about her sometimes. Keeping up with our mother was impossible, and we learned from a young age we would always be left behind. It didn't make it any easier. When she was drinking, light she shone, would wake us up at 3 a.m. with pancakes dripping in cherry syrup. Sometimes when the weather was right and she'd had enough being drunk alone, she would call our school up and tell them we had both come down with summer sickness and we'd drive to the beach instead. I remember being 9 years old in the back seat of the car coming home after one of our ocean days, sucking the salt from my fingers. Annie had just dyed her hair blonde, her best friend Jane helping her bend over our kitchen sink. From behind, I couldn't tell who was mother and who was daughter, radio up and windows down, blowing the sky inside. When she was drinking heavy, she'd be out all night, hair piled up like a beauty queen, eyes glazed over and ringed with glitter and black. Sometimes she'd be gone a day or two. She would never tell us when. One day we'd just wake up to an empty house and the fridge packed full. Post-it note on the front with a smear of Mom's lipstick in the outline of a kiss, telling us she'd be back soon. Sometimes she'd bring guys home, filling the table with beer cans and ashtrays, smoke up to the ceiling, Mom lost in the haze. We'd sleep with pillows over our heads, trying to drown out the music they would blast until the AM, and wake up to strangers at our kitchen table in the morning, asking us where we kept the coffee. When Mom drank too little, she fell apart. She wouldn't buy food. Refrigerator a gaping hole in the wall. She'd chain smoke, leaving cigarette burns on the wallpaper up by the stairs like the walls were sick and decaying. She barely slept, walking around with blue half-moons under her eyes, knuckles raw. She would scream at the slightest thing. I remember once when I spilled a glass of juice on the couch. She looked over at me with dead eyes and dragged me off, onto the carpet, and then took every single cushion off the couch and into the backyard and set them on fire. Annie went to watch a while from the window and then sat next to me on the floor, backs pressed against the skeleton of the seats, head resting in the crater of my collarbones. When Mom drank too much was the worst. She'd laugh too loud and too long at anything and everything, until her mouth started to shake and she started crying. At the breakfast table into her cereal. Annie shut down when Mom was like this, went somewhere deep inside herself where nobody could hurt her. She'd stay up until the morning watching old black and white movies on TV, whispering the lines she knew by heart like prayers. When I was 5, I'd cry when I'd find Mom passed out cold on her bed, sure she would never wake up. Annie would wipe my tears, tell me she was only sleeping just like the princesses in my storybook. We'd sit on Mom's bed together and wait for her to wake up. When we were older, I was the one who would pick Mom up off the bathroom floor again and again, and Annie would put her to bed, smoothing her hair off her face and the vomit from her mouth, changing her clothes if she'd pissed herself, watching them then. There was no doubt that Annie was the mother now. Camping, hiking, hunting, fishing, you name it. I was taking an opportunity to participate in it. My girlfriend was the same. We had bonded over our mutual love of nature and the peace that it brought. Now I'm terrified to spend any time in the woods. That thing I heard there, its voice still haunts my dreams. We decided on a weekend trip to the Mogollon Rim of northern Arizona. It was going to me, my girlfriend Allison, my friend Amanda, and her husband Dave, and my sister Maria with her boyfriend, Gabe. The last two didn't like the idea of roughing it in a tent, so we all went in on a nice cabin in a secluded part of the forest near a lake. The day of the drive, we all packed into my SUV and began the hours-long journey up into the mountains. After what felt like days, we came upon the turnoff given to us by the man who had rented us the cabin. It was at least another hour long, uneven dirt road into the depths of the forest before we found ourselves pulling up to our rather luxurious cabin. I couldn't hide my disappointment. I was hoping for something a little less modernized. Maybe without natural plumbing or electricity. Maria and Gabe were thrilled, and the others seemed excited too. So I told myself I'd enjoy this little slice of heaven out in the middle of nowhere. After all, how often would I get to stay in a place like this? We unpacked our things, found the key where the text said it would be, and went inside to find another note. The septic system was emptied a few days ago and the cabin hasn't been used since. You'll find fuel for the generator in a shed about 5 minutes walk from the cabin. Keep the doors locked and the lights off after 10, otherwise you might get unwanted attention. I hope you enjoy your stay. Ernest. I read it out loud and laughed. We've got indoor toilets, power, and all the other modern amenities we could ever ask for. I hope no one thinks we're roughing it out here, I teased. My sister just rolled her eyes. Dave and I finished unpacking things and gathered up fishing rods for everyone. The lake's a 20-minute hike from here. Anyone feel like going fishing? Gabe and Maria declined, but the rest of us made the journey out to the lake, and much to our surprise, it was empty. Got the whole thing to ourselves, Dave said with a slap to my back. Hope the fish are biting. We spent the entire day out, on the lake, laughing, fishing, drinking, and having a great time. After several wonderful hours, we collected our catches and began the hike back to the cabin. By the time we had gotten back, the sun was disappearing behind the mountains, giving us just enough light to find our way back to the cabin without injury. Upon arrival, we noticed the lights were already on. Guess they got the fuel for the generator, Allison said, amused. Didn't think they'd even leave the cabin. That night we fried up our fish and settled in for a pleasant evening. Even Gabe and Maria enjoyed the fish. The trip was already looking great. We continued this way for 3 days, everyone enjoying the trip in their own way, with Dave, Allison, Amanda, and myself often leaving early in the morning for a hike or to spend some time out by the lake, and Gabe and Maria hanging out at the cabin. Every night we'd kill the lights at around 9:45 to follow the wishes of our host, and every morning we'd be up bright and early for another adventure. Everything was turning up aces. We were all having a great time. Then the fourth night came. Most of us had spent the day on a 6-hour hike through rough trails, and we were beat. We had crashed early, reminding Gabe and Maria that the lights needed to go out by 10 so we could avoid things like bears. They rolled their eyes but agreed. I woke at 2:30 in the morning to the sound of panicked knocking. Slowly I moved to sit up, but I felt Allison's hand seize my shoulder as she looked at me and shook her head fiercely. Hello? I heard a man's voice call from the front door of the cabin. Hey, I'm sorry to bother you all so late. It's just, your light was on and I'm kinda lost. I'm trying to find my friends at the trailhead. I think I got turned around somewhere. Hello? The knocking resumed. I opened my mouth to speak, but Allison covered it, whispering, We don't talk to the thing in the woods. I blinked, staring at her in shock. After a while, the knocking stopped and Allison appeared to relax a little. Until we heard the sound of something gently tapping the window of our bedroom. As I turned my head to look, Allison seized it and kissed me passionately. The tapping continued for several long minutes, during which she held that kiss and my face so that it remained away from the window. When the tapping stopped, she let me go. Her face was ghostly white. It knows we're here now. It won't stop. It's going to come back. What is? I asked, confused. The thing in the forest. What is it? I pressed. She just shook her head. I'm all alone right now. I don't mean that it's just me in the apartment, I mean there is no one else in the world. I don't know what happened, but 3 days ago, I found the sky had gone black, and there was no one else alive. Except for the good old internet and news, and the phone calls I've sent my parents and coworkers. Let me start on Sunday at 10 p.m. So as part of onboarding at this new company, I have to do a week or two on each other their production tours. I've already done my tour 3, which is really early morning, and tour 2 is the default day shift. Tour 1 is dinner to early morning, which is why I'm getting up so early on a Sunday. Something about the official start of the next day being 10 p.m. yesterday or something. I got up at 9 p.m. and the first thing I noticed was just how dark it was outside, like darker than if it was just late at night. I didn't really think too much about it at the time because I was still tired from trying to adjust to the night shift. I got ready for the day like normal and started my drive to work. I noticed that there wasn't much traffic on the highway as I drove to work, which again I didn't really think anything of because it was late and I was still a little out of it. I didn't even realize anything was really wrong when I got to work. I didn't expect there to be anyone in the office section of the warehouse where I work. I'm an operational industrial engineer, so I'm admin. I go to my workstation, boot it up, check my emails, and begin procrastinating away the next few hours of being the only one in the office. It was around midnight that I thought to go walk the warehouse floor and see what Tour 1 actually looked like. The thing is, there was no one there. This was weird because I'd been told we run pretty much 24/7, even on holidays. I walked the whole floor and found evidence of activity, like a pallet jack abandoned in the middle of an aisle and a few carts ready to be moved onto trucks, but no people. After something like a half hour of trying to figure out where everyone was, I decided that maybe they lied about the holiday part, and this Monday was actually one of those random ones that we forget exist. I laugh and head home, quietly thankful for the extra day to try and acclimatize to night shifts. I was a bit more awake driving home, so I noticed the complete absence of traffic so late at night. I kind of expected there to be someone out at this time, but again, it was late. I then rationalized that it was a holiday, so of course no one would be out. It was the sheer blackness that got to me, though. It was dark, the only illumination coming from my headlights and the street lamps. I couldn't see the moon or any stars, just a black as black sky. I guessed it was just cloudy and put it out of my mind. When I got home, I immediately went online because I have no life and found absolutely nothing out of the ordinary. I was getting emails like normal. People had been posting videos on social media like normal. I even found a few YouTube videos that were posted an hour ago and stuff like that. Things looked normal online, and then it gets to be 8 in the morning and I look outside. It's still black as black outside. It spooked me at first, but then I remembered that it was cloudy outside. Just to be sure, I checked the weather online. The Eerie weather said it was clear skies for until Friday. I had to stare at that for a bit. Eventually, I decided that the weather's auto-locate was borked, and it thought I was in the next city or something. There was no way you miss clouds like that. It did kind of creep me out how it was constantly dark outside, but it wasn't until the next day that I started to get suspicious. So 9 p.m. at night. It's pitch black out. Get ready, drive to work. As I stand in the parking lot, I realized suddenly that it was warm. I get that nights can be warm sometimes, but this warmth it didn't feel right to me. I shrugged it off as some sort of weather effect. I go into work, check emails. Everything looks normal, except for the fact that I see emails that suggest that everyone came into work yesterday. I was confused to say the least. And then I went out to walk the floor. It was just like last night, exactly like last night. Stuff was still on the dock waiting to be shipped. A pallet jack was in the middle of an aisle. I walked the floor for an hour trying to rationalize it until I just decided that somehow the fact that it was still officially Monday meant that it was still a holiday, even if the schedule was weird. My mind ignored the emails telling me that today was not a holiday and assumed that everything would be normal tomorrow. It was still pitch black out, and there were still no cars on the road. But there were new YouTube videos.